Right, so we are ready to start now. Good evening to our audiences in India and good morning to our listeners in Canada. It is my pleasure to invite you to this exclusive webinar on F&B Trade and Investment Opportunities between India and West Canada, being organized by the Trade Promotion Council of India in collaboration with the Consulate General of India, Vancouver. Canada and India have a strong relationship based on shared values of democracy and pluralism. Arguably, the strongest factor driving these relations is the presence of over 1.2 million people of Indian origin, which account for around 3 to 4% of its population and are well integrated into the mainstream. India-Canada bilateral trade increased from US $3.2 billion in 2010 to US $6.8 billion in 2019, dropping to around US $5.6 billion in 2020. India's F&B exports to Canada stood at around US $475 million during the year, which is 1.3% of Canada's imports from the world in these commodities. That's according to ITC Trade Map. Top exported products include fish, crustaceans, cereals, coffee, tea, meat, spices, oilseeds, and preparations of cereals. And obviously, the potential is huge, and there are, the food industry, as we know, consistently keeps evolving, and especially during the pandemic, we are seeing a lot of new innovations, new technologies coming into the market. Customers are demanding more from producers. So there's definitely a lot of scope for a country like India to expand its exports to Canada, expand its investments in Canada. And therefore, we look forward to this very exciting session where we have a highly esteemed panel to discuss both India's growing prominence in the food processing sector, as well as the potential of trade and investment for Indian food and beverage companies in West Canada, which includes the states of British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Yukon, and Northwest Territories. So without taking any more of your time, let me take the opportunity to introduce our esteemed panel with you. We have with us here Mr. Manish, Honorable Consul General of India, Vancouver, Canada. Mr. Manish is a career diplomat, has degrees of Bachelor's of Science, Honors, and Bachelor's of Law. He has worked in various capacities in several Indian missions and posts abroad, such as Moscow, Tashkent, Prague, Colombo, and Jakarta, before joining as Consul General of India in Vancouver on 30th August 2020. Mr. Manish has handled both bilateral and multilateral partnerships and has rich experience of handling different aspects of diplomatic relationships, such as political, cultural, commercial, and economic, and press and information. Mr. Manish has headed the division in the Ministry of External Affairs, New Delhi, that was responsible for managing bilateral relations with ASEAN countries, Pacific Island countries, Australia, and New Zealand, as well as issues related to the setting up of Nalanda University. We extend a warm welcome to you, sir, and thank you for being part of this session. Next, we have with us Mr. Manjeesh Grover, Consul Commerce, CGI Vancouver. Mr. Manjeesh Grover heads the Commerce Wing in the Consulate General of India, Vancouver. He has previously worked on the Commerce Desk in the Embassy in Washington, D.C., and brings a wealth of experience being at the Vancouver Consulate for over 2.5 years. Next, we have, representing the business community from Canada, Mr. Tony Singh, CEO and President, Fruticana, who's a well-known entrepreneur and has scripted a spectacular success story with his grocery business. He was inspired to set up Fruticana during a trip to Surrey, British Columbia in 1992, when he noticed how the South Asian community was struggling to find the grocery items they craved for. He used his knowledge of the grocery business to find where and how he could import the items he desired. Fruticana's core value proposition is to offer customers quality fresh fruits, vegetables, and spices at the best prices. Founded in 1994 with a single store, it is now one of the largest grocery retailers in Western Canada, with 18 locations in British Columbia and Alberta. Mr. Tony has received many awards for his success, both as a business person and as a philanthropist. From India, we have Mr. Abhishek Poddar, Vice Chairman, Food and Beverage Sectoral Committee, Trade Promotion Council of India, and also the Managing Director of Nani Agro Foods, Erode, Tamil Nadu. He has a rich experience in business of over 2 decades. Nani Agro Foods is a leading manufacturer and exporter of a wide variety of authentic spices and spice blends from India, which has been in operation since 1968. The company has its network in various international markets such as the US, UK, Japan, or Europe, Australia, and the Middle East. It is one of the largest turmeric processors in the country, supplemented by a state-of-the-art production unit spread across 5 lakh square feet in Erode, Tamil Nadu. From Trade Promotion Council of India, we have Mr. Suresh Kumar Makijani, Joint Director General, TPCI. Mr. Makijani is a former IFS officer who retired as Deputy High Commissioner to Nigeria. He has a distinguished career in foreign service across Indian missions in Tehran, Nicosia, Ankara, Kuala Lumpur, Hanoi, and Vancouver. And post-retirement, he joined the Trade Promotion Council of India. And finally, we have with us Mr. Ashok Sethi, Director, Trade Promotion Council of India, who brings with him a very diverse bouquet of experiences and outlook in his professional and personal life. With a domestic and international exposure spanning over 4 decades, he has been at the helm of affairs in India and Middle East with leading and globally recognized brands such as Pepsi Cola in the Middle East and Iran, KRBL India, that's India Gate Rice, and Best Foods Limited. For the last 5 years, he has been associated with Trade Promotion Council of India and has played an instrumental role in securing sound footprints for the organization in the Middle East. Now, without wasting much time, to start the session, I will now request Mr. Manish, Honorable Consul General of India, Vancouver, to share his views on the topic. Over to you, sir, and welcome all of you once again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Virat, for this elaborate introduction. And I'm really privileged today to be part of this webinar. First of all, let me thank TPCI for agreeing to our suggestion to host this seminar on this very important year when we are celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, the 75th anniversary of India's independence. During his welcome remarks, Mr. Virat has already mentioned that both India and Canada are strategic partners, Commonwealth countries, multi-ethnic societies. While we have expert in the panel in the form of Mr. Tony Singh, CEO and President of Fruticana, and I have my colleague Manjeet Grover, Council Commerce, who will give you the detailed insight into the market, the opportunities. Let me take this opportunity to give a few broad overview of where we are vis-a-vis Canada in terms of India-Canada economic engagement. Canada is a home to about 35 million people, but the most important factor in our relationship is the presence of large Indian diaspora, the person of Indo-Canadian heritage. So this country of 35 million is home to about 1.6, 1.7 million Indian origin people. Of course, Western Canada would be having about 600,000 to 700,000 of this Indo-Canadian heritage. So what I wanted to take you to is that this country is home to ready-made ethnic Indian food product market. And Mr. Tony Singh, CEO and President of Fruticana, will more dwell on to this aspect, but this gives a very big opportunity for Indian exporters to supply their products. More specifically in this year, when Government of India under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, we have set a target of export of about $400 billion worth of products, out of which 30 commodities identify, at least 3 to 4 commodities are of food and beverages sector. Rice, spices, tea, fresh fruits and vegetables are 3 of the top 4 items which we are looking at exporting to this globally and also to Canada. In terms of our economic engagement, we are in terms of export of products and services, our basket is about more than about 20 billion or about 15 billion or so. But the important aspect is we attract a lot of portfolio investment from Canada into India, which is to the tune of about 60 billion, and it is increasing. In 2015, it was about 5 billion. Now it is about 60 billion in 2020. So overall, the economic corridor between India and Canada is about 100 billion worth, of which includes trade in goods and services, FDI, and portfolio investment. So coming back to this specific sector, what are the few pointers I want to leave it to our exporters? As I said, consumer base, especially people of Indian origin, is growing. India is one of the largest source country for immigration in Canada. So a few days ago, we were talking with Ms. Tony Singh. He said that and there are about 240,000 Indian students here. So each Indian student, say for example, is a potential immigrant to this country. So in near future, they are going to add on more people in their family. So in any case, the demand for ethnic food items from India is going to increase. And due to COVID pandemic, also consumer has shifted to eat at home products. So there is various consumer demand is shifting to grocery purchases and eat at home products. About 80%, I have seen some data for 2021, there was 80% spike in grocery spending among the ordinary Canadians, which gives us some opportunity to kind of increase our exports. And the 20% more is being spent on purchasing of grocery. And so these two factors, I think, will increase the demand for Indian food products. And the projection is that in the near future, when the world population will increase, as well as of the Canada, the spending on food item will also increase. Apart from the spending on food, there is an increase in the disposable income of also the Canadians. I mean, it is expected to grow about 15% in Canada by 2025. So this also help people to kind of increase their purchasing capacity and buying of consumer products. One important factor which we should keep in mind in Canada, Canada is a very high demand market in the sense that we need to follow the proper rules and regulations and entry of our products into Canada in terms of the requirement for labeling, packaging, the food quality checks and things like that. So if we follow this specific thing, it is very easy to kind of enter into Canadian market, which in a brief while, I think my colleague Manjeesh will give you a market entry strategy for Canada and the way we should approach that. We should also keep in mind that Canadian consumers are very, very conscious, and their preferences are also changing with time. Consumers are demanding healthier, higher quality products. So especially the organic with specific labels of organic in nature. So we need to suitably try to organize ourselves in order to send organic products or high quality products which is needed for the Canadian market and find partners. We in the consulate, we look after not only British Columbia, but we are also responsible for Saskatchewan, Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Alberta. So in all the 5 Western Canadian provinces are with us, and these 5 provinces contribute to about 1/3 of trade between India and Canada. So as I said, we will deep dive into the various aspects of food and beverage sector in our presentation from a short while now. But we are more than happy and willing to help Indian exporters to find partners in Western Canada as well as in Canada to achieve the goal of set by our government for export of food items to Canada. And thank you once again to all for joining this webinar live. I know it is late in evening in India, but in Canada, we are just opening up in Western Canada, 7 a.m. in the morning, 7:30 now. And I look forward for a interesting discussion since we have both the policymaker as well as a practitioner who will give you a practical view on how to do your business with the Canadians. Thank you once again and welcome to the webinar.
Thank you so much, sir, for your opening remarks. I would now like to request Mr. Manjeesh Grover, Consul Commerce, CGI Canada, to deliver his remarks and his more detailed presentation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Viratji, for moderating this webinar today. As Consul General Ji pointed out, our focus here is on trade and commerce, and we are a very small team in the commerce wing. My colleague Rajinder Kumar is also on the webinar today, and we work in under the leadership and guidance of our Consul General. The focus, of course, has been to improve the exports from India, as CG pointed out. So without much further ado, let us deep dive into the presentation that we have for you. It's a longish presentation, but we've tried to touch over all the aspects that could be useful for our export fraternity. So let me just share the screen. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, sir, we can see.
Okay, wonderful. So before we begin, I think the very first slide that I would come to is to apprise you of some market highlights which need to be kept in mind before actually, looking at Canada as a destination for exporting F&B products. So first off, the population is very small here, especially when you compare it to USA. It's just 37 million people. But the good thing for us is that there is a huge ethnic diversity, and especially a large population of Indian descent, of Indian origin, that actually gives impetus to our exports of F&B products. Agriculture and agro processing, Canada is pretty big on that. So they are themselves an export market, and the retail market in Canada is worth about $75 billion in 2019. That's the F&B retail market. The imports in 2019 amounted to about...
Sir, just a second. Your slide is not moving. Can you put it down a bit? Or should I share it for you?
Can you see the slide? I can see the full slide here.
It's not visible here. I mean...
oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think
only the first slide is visible, not the next one.
Oh, that's strange.
Can you click on slide number 2 and just see?
How about this?
Just click on slide number 2. Is it coming?
You have the presentation, right?
Yes, I have it, sir.
Let me stop my share, and then perhaps you can bring on the one that you have.
I'll just do that, sir.
All right, perfect.
It's just opening. Just 2 seconds.
You want me to try again? Maybe I have figured out what was wrong. Actually, I think I didn't have the full screen on the Zoom.
Apologies. Just a few seconds more. I think it's a heavy PPT. I guess it's taking just a little time, but I'm trying to make it as fast as possible.
Let me try it once again.
Sure, sir.
Yeah, let me just try it once again. And
I'll keep it open in the meanwhile in case.
Absolutely. How about now? Still the same?
Yes, sir. Yes, we can see it now. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I figured out. Actually, I was, I was on minimized mode on the Zoom.
No problem.
Okay. So let's resume with the F&B imports. So they stood at around $24 billion, from all over the world. This was the last complete figures for 2019 that were available. And the immigration population, as I mentioned before, and as CG also mentioned, provides a whole opportunity for the Indian food exporters to bring their products here. We will come later to how many Indians are here, and perhaps Mr. Tony Singh can also dwell a little bit on how the growth opportunity looks like. But suffice it to say for now that ethnic food market has a big potential in Canada. Canada is a sophisticated market, very quality conscious customers. There is a high consumer awareness, so that needs to be kept in mind when you are targeting this market. For those who are already doing business in the US, will find the a smooth sailing here, because it's pretty much the same regulations with slight differences here and there. The food processors basically rely on imported raw materials, semi-processed and processed ingredients. So that is another big market. There is of course a strong local buy ethos that is prevalent in Canada, and I believe that is so in most of the other countries as well, across Europe and across USA. But that does not, of course, mean that there is going to be any less potential for the Indian food products to be imported to this country. There are a lot of well-established multinational manufacturers who also need raw products. And 99% of the 6,500 F&B processing units in Canada fall into the MSME sector. So these are some of the key highlights, key points that need to be broadly kept in mind before we dwell into the nitty-gritty of the market here. Oops. Oh, got it. Yeah. So this is the market breakup of imports, all the way from the prepared food and beverages to edible preparations, other processed foods. So you can see that barring fresh fruits and vegetable oil, in almost all other segments, USA actually holds about 60% of the export market or the import market into Canada. So that is a huge component, a huge chunk that just goes off to one country basically, and the rest of the 40% is up for grabs for other niche for other players. India, of course, has to target on two fronts. One is the niche market that is generated by the people of Indian descent here, and the other, of course, is the larger market. These are the major Canadian players, the Pan Canada, and we have listed the top 10 all the way from $2 billion to about $12 billion. Saputo is, of course, the dairy product manufacturer based out of Montreal. They make all varieties of cheeses and all, and they also supply to the world. McCain, you all know, is in India as well. Then you've got AgroPure, Maple Leaf Food, and all the big names are basically here, and they do pretty good business. Now, although the general presentation will dwell on more Pan Canada, import and export situation, but since we are focused on our provinces, so I'm going to highlight here some of the bigger importers here and businesses who actually do a lot of business importing Indian food and beverage products. I've, of course, been very careful to list Fruticana on the top because Mr. Tony Singh is sitting here, and but he is the largest importer of food into British Columbia and this part of Canada. So we have all these companies, and British Columbia takes the lion's share of food imports into Western Canada, followed by Alberta and then Saskatchewan. And we can also provide you, contact details and list of all these companies if you come back to us with a request. So this is these are the major players in Alberta, and as you can see, British Columbia has a whole lot of companies who are importing F&B products from India. Now, let's run through the advantages and challenges that an exporter could face. So let's do the advantages first. So the proximity and integration with North American market. So if you are exporting to North America, if you're exporting to the USA, then it becomes that much more easier for you to target the Canadian markets as well. As I said, regulation-wise, both the countries have pretty much similar, regulatory framework. So that is an easy fix. And then, of course, capturing the market becomes also easy because it works pretty much on the same scheme of things. Again, there is a similarity with US and EU markets. If you are an exporter there, shouldn't be a problem getting into Canada. The short growing Canadian growing season is again a boon for the rest of the world to export to Canada, especially the produce and a lot of other stuff. The consumers are willing to pay more for higher quality. So if you've got a product where you can sell quality, where you can show quality, the acceptability would be that much more easier. And of course, lastly, and this is again a factor that we keep on coming back to, is the large Indian diaspora, the immigrants and the students. So currently it's about 2.4 million and it's growing. Again, as CG said, and as Mr. Tony Singh will also probably point out, that this segment is really, I think, growing at 14-15% and every year on year. So that gives a whole lot of growth potential to our exports. Some of the challenges are that geographically, India and Canada are far apart. Lately, of course, there have been a lot of complaints or a lot of talk from the importer fraternity here that there were logistic problems, finding containers, freight going up, and that's of course an effect of the pandemic. So hopefully that would be a temporary phase, and we would come back to the logistics being what they were pre-COVID days. But that remains a challenge for now. And the geographical distance, of course, does remain a challenge because it adds to the cost of freight and insurance. There are differences in shopping patterns. The Westerners are, of course, have different culinary tastes, and some of the items from India may not be widely acceptable to the general population, barring, of course, the Indian diaspora, which laps them up. Now, there is a very high demand on quality, as was mentioned earlier, of course, and higher standards are put on the chemicals and the residual tolerances that the local regulatory bodies have fixed for various food products. I believe, from my own experience, I believe US, these challenges are more. In Canada, they're a little less, but nevertheless, they do exist because there are exacting standards of, how a food should be treated and how, and how many, how much residue it should have of the chemical treatments and all. So those are the things that need to be watched. So these are some trends that we need to keep in mind that motivate the Canadian consumer and the Canadian F&B market. So CG also mentioned in his opening remarks, there is a demand for healthy eating, which of course is growing all over the world. There's a demand to reduce waste, and that's of course the ESG and going green and all that. So reducing waste operation in packaging, that's another aspect that needs to be kept in mind. The ethical manufacturing is another one, and demand for organic and natural products. And thankfully, I think India is pretty well geared on that. So I think that our exporters can take advantage of, because there is now a huge demand on eating organic and natural products. There is, of course, regulations that are in place to check quality, the origin and ingredients and labeling. As far as labeling is concerned, I think almost now everybody knows that Canada demands a bilingual labeling process, that it has to be in English and French both. How the consumer tastes and the choices in Canada will affect your imports into this country or your exports into this country. So these are like some points here, basically. There's a consumer food guide that you can refer to here, which can actually give you some of those changing trends. And there is, of course, a big demand in the plant-based meat alternative products. So burgers, sausages, a lot of those things are now, coming into those plant-based proteins. So it's a huge demand. 8% increase was seen last year, and I believe there are also some trade shows that are solely geared towards these plant-based products now here in Canada. The ethically conscious and with acute awareness of climate change are some of the things to be kept in mind. Basically, we touched on those things a little in the earlier slide as well. So the reduction in waste, environment impact, plastic packaging, ensuring animal welfare. So these are all the the concepts that are basically, up in the minds of the Canadian consumer, as well as the regulators here in Canada. And at the core of our export strategy, I think these things should be prominently built in, because that's what's going to drive future growth of exports in the F&B market into not just Canada, but the US and EU as well. Government regulations are a big part, of course. There have been some recent regulations. I'll talk about them a little later in the other slide, which were introduced during the COVID time, during the pandemic. So some of the new initiatives, new regulatory initiatives that the government brings do impact the exporters. And the name of the game is to basically adapt to those changes quickly and then to comply with them. There is really no other way, basically, because that would mean either an acceptance or a rejection of your product. The consumer packaged foods, which are high in sodium, sugar, saturated fats, so these have to be prominently labeled on the packaging, and that is again, born out of the fact that there is a lot of emphasis on healthy eating and the health aspects of food. Requirement for recording traceability of food. So, what's the origin of the food? Basically, that is a requirement because if there are any issues with a particular batch, then that traceability comes in, becomes important. So that is another thing that you need to keep in mind before you actually, start exporting to Canada. I'm giving here, a food import guide website. You could just Google it, and you can go there, and you will get a whole lot of, these trends and these regulations that will help you in making a call on this. Preferences. Consumer preferences change. They change basically on the awareness about health issues. They also change on the basis of how the shift in demography is shaping up. So in Canada, the main consumer values, of course, are halal, kosher, vegetarian, organic, fair trade, non-GMO. These are pretty much, the consumer values which you can see worldwide also, but in Canada more so. The environmental standards, fair wild standards, forest stewardship, sustainability of oceans. So these are again taken very seriously in Canada, especially where marine products are concerned. There is a lot of emphasis on sustainable fishing, and products are actually marked, particularly saying that these were caught or these were produced by keeping in mind the sustainability of environment. The animal welfare is, of course, another aspect. Cage-free eggs are something that you would all relate to, and that is a huge concept here. So international dolphin safe standards, and also all those concepts are pretty keenly followed in Canada. Let's look at some of the entry strategies. If you are exporting, on a smaller or larger scale, it's always better to, and if you're a first-time importer here to this market, it's always better to consult an international trade specialist rather than go it alone, because there are a whole regulatory and other issues to navigate, and an international trade specialist would perhaps help you do that. Research, of course, is very important. What we are giving you here is just the tip of the iceberg. This is just to get you, get you interested deeper into the Canadian market. The local Canadian partners getting partnering with somebody like Mr. Tony Singh or some of the other importers, big importers here, helps a lot. They can assure that your product gets all the regulatory hurdles cleared and then gets here. Then, of course, adhering to the Canadian government standards and regulations, very important, of course. You cannot have a product come in without adhering to those standards. Then, of course, the consulate, of course, will urge the companies to participate in Canadian trade shows. There are quite a few F&B related shows here in Canada. The biggest one, of course, is the SIAL, the SIAL Canada, which alternates between Montreal and Toronto. We have some trade shows here in BC as well. Food Pro 22 happens in June. CHFA now happens in April. Then we've got the Grocery and Specialty Food Best, which again comes in April this year. And as I mentioned before, there is a show called Planted Expo, which is solely for plant-based products, and that will be taking place in June. So we invite you, to come and attend one of those shows or multiple shows. There is, of course, one called the Restaurant Consumer Show in Toronto as well. That's another big one. So fortunately, now that the pandemic has waned, we are now going to see a lot of these shows having an in-person participation. So if you need any help in getting more information about them, please reach out to us, and we are here to guide you and to facilitate your entry to come and attend these shows. The trade associations and chambers also provide a lot of guidance, both here in Canada as well as people like TPCI and APIDA and all in India. So reach out to them, and they will be a big help. And lastly, our mission in our High Commission in Ottawa, and we here in Vancouver, and our consulate in Toronto also provide export counseling and advice. So you can reach out to us as well. I will share our coordinates at the end of this presentation. Some of the now, where can you find these import procedures? It's a long, tedious process. I would not be able to cover that in a few slides here. So what we can do is we can guide you towards the websites where you can actually see what are the import procedures, what are all the regulations, what are the guides. And the Canadian government has actually done a very good job. I've actually seen and visited some of these sites. They've actually done a very good job product-wise guidance, where you should approach, who you should approach, what are the things you should keep in mind. So I think their processes are in place. Their internet resources are in place. All you need to do is just go there, do your research, and then get going. So the last line is very important, because some of the like the new regulations that came in for the Food and Canadian regulations, the SFCR, those were introduced actually in January 2019. That was just before the COVID, and they cover actually a lot of amendments in the Dairy Commission Act, then the Consumer Packaging and Labeling Act, the Custom Tariffs, the Food and Drugs Act. So a lot of these regulations were brought in, these changes, modifications were brought in just before the pandemic and during the pandemic. So rules keep on changing. That is why I think you need to be abreast of them and keep on consulting their local resources. These are some of the things that we've already dwelt on a little bit, but these are the things that the exporters need to be aware of. Traceability, of course, is one. Then food packaging. So how to make sure that food stays safe during packaging. Don't forget, you are actually going to transport it all the way from India to Canada, which is a long distance. The food would actually be sitting on the on a container in a container on the sea for months. There are logistic challenges nowadays. It takes a little longer for consignments to reach here than it would 2 years ago. So all those things you need to keep in mind. Then safety standards, guidelines need to be kept in in mind as well. The safety investigation and recall processes are could be pretty severe here in Canada. Testing bulletins are again some of the things that you need to be aware of. Sampling, testing, and those are done. And I'm sure Mr. Tony Singh will be able to guide you better on that, because he probably goes through all those kind of things on a daily basis. The food incident response processes in US, Canada, Europe are pretty swift. Whenever there is a detected, something is detected in a particular food or batch, those are recalled, and a lot of action happens. Then, of course, the illness outbreaks response protocol is all been devised and set, and it's all followed in a pretty rigorous fashion. So these are again some of the things that you need to keep in mind. Now, mind you, there is a toolkit for food importers that you can also Google and access, and that will give you a lot of these guidelines. Distribution channels is perhaps a very important aspect when you are considering to export, especially to a far-off country like Canada. So if you are partnering with large multinationals, they will, of course, leverage you to take you through that process. But if you are doing it alone, you need to set your distribution channels right in this country. Small and medium-sized Canadian manufacturers, they usually source their ingredients from specialized Canadian food ingredient brokers or distributors. Now, these brokers and distributors actually charge a commission for sourcing it and supplying it to the manufacturers. So it's always a good idea to actually partner with a broker or a distributor rather than go directly to the manufacturer, because that could be a tedious process. I mean, whether they are in the small and medium sector or they're in the large sector, reaching to the end manufacturer can become daunting at times. So it's always also a good idea to look at these brokers and distributors in the in the middle. I'll skip to most of the other this thing that you can you can have a look at those. So most distributors are not inclined to pioneer your product. So what they do is, they will just whoever approaches them, they will just take their product and take it forward. So that's another thing that you will need to keep in mind. Indian firms and trade bodies need to advertise and market their goods better. Now, this is a refrain that we have been actually, trying to get across. That where I think we lack is that our promotion and our advertisement in this country is really very, very minimal. So, and this is, I think, directed to our friends at the TTCI and so many other trade bodies in India, that they should have a budget and they should actively look at actually advertising for Indian food products to to kind of build a brand following here. I'm not saying a particular brand. What I'm saying is a sort of a generic, brand of Indian food products in these countries. And for that, you need, various kinds of promotions and advertisements. So those are some things that will actually then help you achieve. If I can give you an example, it's like, the French champagne or the Swiss chocolate. Those are like global generic things, and they are like advertised as a brand. And then everybody else, the individual manufacturers of chocolates and all, they come and follow that major, that major consciousness that is created in the minds of the consumer that, the Swiss chocolates are really the best. So Indian tea could be an example for, one of our forays into that brand building. What are the competitions and the market restrictions that you can encounter? So as I said earlier, market is dominated by United States. 60% of most of the segments, the US is actually exporting. China, France, and India actually vie and then there are some European countries who actually vie for the other market. So we have, less than 7% share right now, but it's of course growing. Then there is a local, buy local movement that of course hinders some of the items that are that we are trying to sell to the mass population here. So those are some of the market restrictions that you could encounter. Now, what are the growth sectors? Now, of course, the US dominates the fruits and vegetable juice market. Brazil dominates the frozen orange juice concentrate market, and China has an 88% share of the apple juice concentrate market in Canada. So those are, of course, numbers that you need to keep in mind, because those are really high barriers that you would need to scale. There are a lot of supply management system in place, a lot of protectionism that goes in the dairy, poultry, and egg market in Canada. And that is, of course, a big fight between US and Canada as well on the dairy and poultry side. So that's another difficult market to pierce. The growth where you could actually really, the sector where you can actually really see a growth and then participate is the plant-based protein sector. So that is, I think, we have now a lot of companies in India who are actually working on plant-based proteins. So that's a sector that can be looked at as a growth sector. Ethnic food, the ethnic markets, China, India, Iran. These are all pockets of immigrants that actually drive this market. And for us, luckily, with 2.4 million people and growing, the ethnic food market for Indian food products is huge, and that is definitely that needs to be tapped into. The organic food market is another great demand generator. That's only going to grow in the future, and this is across categories. You have pulses, you have fruits, vegetables, fresh produce, processed food. The organic label does make a difference. So this is just a heat map of what are the various regions in India that really specialize in exports of which product. So I'm sure you're all aware of that. So I'll just quickly skip this. Now, what does India have as an advantage? So we have a very, very growing food export market, and I think our exporters are looking very keenly to now export, having captured the local markets. So these are some of the figures that you can see, and they are pretty good numbers here. But of course, there is a whole huge room for improvement. And markets like Canada do provide you a good, a sizable increase of your export basket. Now, sustainable production is, of course, a big theme here. And fortunately, as you can see with this table, India is well poised with its organic certified products. So I think we do have an advantage, and we need to leverage that advantage. If your product is US FDA cleared, I think the local Canadian clearance is not too difficult to achieve, because they pretty much work on the same principles. So that brings me to the end. So these are our coordinates. Please feel free to reach out to us if you are looking at Western Canada, and if you need Pan Canada information, our High Commission would be more than welcome to provide you that. With that, thank you very much for listening and for seeing the presentation. I would be open to questions at the end. And since we have on our panel, a prominent person from the industry side, perhaps he would be actually better poised to answer some of the more trickier questions if you would like to pose them to us. So thank you very much. Now I'll just stop here.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, for that very comprehensive presentation. And I would now like to request Mr. Tony Singh, CEO and President, Fruticana, to give his views and share his invaluable experience on the topic.
Well, good morning and actually good evening in India. Well, thank you for having me on the panel. So I've been in a business over 27 years. Started with a small store, and we have 21 stores as we speak in Western Canada, and more to open. So we are one of the largest grocery wholesaler in a warehouse size-wise. We have 150,000 square feet of warehouse for spices and lentils that we mainly bring from India. We've been bringing product from India for over 25 years now. We are in business for almost 28 years and growing. Canada, being 37 million population, over a million, 1.6 to 1.8 million Indo-Canadian who consume this product from India. Not only the Indo-Canadian population who consume this product, but most of the Canadian population also have developed a good taste of Indian food. You will find spices almost in every household now, beyond Indo-Canadian house. Canadian population is growing from India with immigration, with the students who've been here for the last 4 years, who have settled. Also, there's more students coming, and most of them will stay here. Majority will stay here and make Canada as their home. We have approximately 240,000 students who came in over the year. And next 5 years, in my point of view, they will go into about 1 million Indo-Canadian from India. How is that? One student who came here 2 years ago will finish his education within 2 to 3 years, get his PR, and probably get married in India or here, and sponsor their parents or siblings. 2 parents behind one student, maybe another 2 siblings. So within 5 years, there'll be 5. And those siblings also will get married somewhere in India. At least 1 or 2 siblings will get married in India and bring another family, and so on and on. So in my point of view, within 5 years, we are seeing the population of Indo-Canadian going 5-fold higher. So that demands of Indian food. So when they're coming into Canada, they're coming at later age, unlike me when I came as 10, 12-year-old, but they're coming in their teens and parents over in their 50s and 60s also have already developed Indian food taste. So they'll be looking for every item that they ate in India, from rice to spices to clothing, you name it. So they need that when they get here. And Canada, it's ready to service that industry, that sector of it. We're well placed in that way. We have enough retail, we have the warehousing, we have importer who are bringing the product and will be bringing as well. So it's a huge growth on a lot of food and also clothing. When I came to Canada 45 years ago, we wouldn't dare to wear Indian attire and go to shopping, where things have changed quite a lot. We are, been here long enough, settled, and the whole country is aware of our presence here, and we openly wear our Indian attire, and when we say Indian attire, also we go out eating Indian food, and a lot more restaurants have opened up, and Indo-Canadian restaurant also offer a lot of Indian dishes on their menu right now. You can go to any hotel, you will probably find butter chicken or naan or rice dish available on their menu as well, which was unheard 30, 40 years ago. So there's a huge opportunity, not only for Indo-Canadian, but the whole sector of this country. So that's 36 million and growing, and we're a very young country, and a lot more immigrations coming into this country. Importing product in this country, it's relatively easy, long as you apply all the demands that CFI requires, proper labeling, as Mr. Grover has mentioned, proper packaging, make sure there's French on every item as English. Please do not pick a product from the market and put it on a container. It will be rejected here, because every item that you see, every line written on the package has to be translated in French as well. So not just the name only, every English word has to be translated in French as well. So that's mandatory here. On CFI web sites, there's a lot of information how to import product into Canada. So relatively, it's easy, long as you go along with the regulations. What's a bigger demand in Canada right now? Bigger demand is frozen food. It went from, my experience, from 5-door cooler to 20-door cooler freezers in my stores over the last 5-7 years. Why is that? Again, it's the students coming in from India who are studying all day long and they don't have time to cook. They want Indian food. They want a ready-made Indian taste in their fridge. So when they come in from hard day of part-time work and studying, they just want to warm something up and have a meal. So there's a huge amount of frozen vegetables. Meat, not as much, but vegetable, there's a huge demand right now. And we just can't get enough of Indian frozen product from India right now. So we're looking for a lot more suppliers who can supply us the product in the frozen sector of it. Spices, yes, there's big growth on spices as well, because the spices are being used in beyond Indo-Canadian restaurant, as I mentioned earlier. Healthy, it's not only for food, but many other reasons to be healthy have been used right now. So going to healthy eating, organic food is another big demand. Indo-Canadian population who've been here for 30, 40 years, or even last 10 years has done well financially. And now they're looking for a product, healthy product from India. Spices was not available a few years ago, and organic. So we have plenty product in our market, and we need quite a lot more. So that's the other sector growing very fast, and we just can't have enough. A proper packaging, a quality product, consumers looking for that. Those days are gone where you can just put a sticker on a package and send it to Canada. We need a proper packaging, a good quality product. It's a huge demand in Canada. Fresh vegetables, yes, the U.S. services most of our fresh product, and Mexico also in the winter time. But the taste of Indian product, we can't have enough. We have a logistic problem right now. The airline just cannot get enough space in their plane. We pretty much bring 6 to 10 ton a week. Every airplane could take our product, we put it in there, such as carrots, guavas, guar, chiku. So all the fruits and vegetables that we miss at home, and we looking for, in Canada. So fresh fruits and vegetables also, it's a huge growth by air. Mangoes, somebody mentioned earlier, I see that if there's demand for mangoes, yes, there's a huge demand for mangoes from India as well. We import over 100 containers of mangoes out of Mexico in a season, and India very small due to the distance, logistics. We cannot bring it by container. By air, we are bringing quite a lot of mangoes as well. So that's another part of the product that we need. I've seen a lot of grapes from India. Green grapes are coming into the market last 2 years. So that's coming by container. So there's already fresh product. It's appearing in Canada and well perceived. Really good grapes are in the market. So if the grapes could make it here, many other fruits also could make it into Canada, such as jamuns. That's a very short season in India, but well received in the summertime here. Going back to importing the product into Canada, make sure the product is tested in a lab and keep records of all that. The Canadian government will come and test the product even after you have submitted your test from India with import container. They will come to the warehouse and spot check product. They will take a samples, and the product will stay in the detention until samples come out. And they're pretty quick. Within days, they can give us the results of it. So you will be tested double randomly in the warehouse. They also will take some samples as well and out of the container at the port. And secondary, if they miss that, and they will show up in my warehouse unannounced any day, and they will randomly walk around the warehouse and take samples of it. So beware of that. The labs test you have in India is very accurate. Allergens, if any gluten product, it's in the same warehouse or packaged at the same facility, make sure package is written on the package is packed in a gluten machine or area. And if a very minute trace of gluten appears in a package, that will reject it right off. It had to be destroyed. Traceability, as Mr. Grover have already mentioned, is very important. Since COVID, there's a lot of new regulation by CFIA. We need the barcodes. We need other traceability means. When the product has an issue with 1 or 2 complaints, product will be taken for testing, and if there's something they find a chemical or something not allowed in Canada, they will be recalled immediately. So we have within hours of time to take the product off the shelf, not days. We have given it within half an hour to an hour to respond back to CFIA that what we have done with the product, have we taken off the shelves? This is how quickly traceability product had to be traced. Which store it went to, where it came from. So that it came in effect last year. So very important, traceability has to be there. Biodegradable packaging. The rest of the world is going, India as well as North America and Canada. Environment is very crucial. Plastics are getting outdated, banned completely within Canada. So find different way of packaging. biodegradable packaging is very important. It's coming. Some is already here. In my point of view, next few years, plastic will be eliminated completely in all packages. So whatever imported in the U.S. by U.S. government, and it's also implemented in Canada. I would say 99.9% of the product, if you can import it to U.S., it will be accepted in Canada as well. Our rules are very, very similar in that way. Probably a little lighter than U.S. So if you export to U.S., Canada is easy. Finding your importer in Canada, beware who you export to. You are liable if any product comes into this country. Any chemicals in there, the product has to be destroyed. So you're liable for that, not the importer. That falls on the exporter. So do your little homework before you export your product. In my retail experience, I have seen growth in spices where we had maybe 30 or 20 SKUs of spices. Now we have hundreds of SKUs. Why is there hundreds of SKUs? First, when I opened my store, we only brought a product from Delhi. And then product was, there's other population start demanding product if they have visited India or the different part of India, from South India, East India, North India. So we import product from whole India, not just North India, Delhi or Bombay, but the rest of India. As we all know, the food taste changes every 10 miles in India, which is very good. So there's abundant of different items that we need. We need product from south of India, Punjab, Kashmir, and also in Kolkata. So you name it, we need. We have close to 4,000 items in our warehouse. Out of 4,000 SKUs in the warehouse, I would say 70% of the product we have in the warehouse is imported from India. So that's how many SKUs we have. So we need everything from spices to lentils, a broom, Indian bed, Indian shovel. We need a packaging, a wedding, bangles. So you name it, this is what we have in our retail store from around India, not just North India. So if any importer or exporter wants to reach me, and you can reach our Consul General, CGI, Mr. Grover. He will help you to give my information. We are looking for frozen product very badly for anybody who wants to export frozen vegetables. Please contact me. And that's all I have to say right now. I'll take any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for those excellent remarks. I think you've encapsulated a lot of your rich experience, whatever you could, of course, in this span of time, and it's definitely going to be very useful. Now, I would request Mr. Abhishek Poddar, who's Vice Chairman, Food and Beverage Sectoral Committee, TPCI, and MD Nani Agro Foods, to now talk about the Indian food processing industry and how how this industry views the prospects and potential in Canada. Over to you, sir.
Hello to everyone. Good morning to people viewing from Canada, and good evening to all the viewers from India. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Manish, the Consul General of India, Vancouver, Mr. Mangesh Grover, Consul Commerce, CGI, Vancouver, and Mr. Tony Singh to give us a deep insight of the Canadian market. And I'm sure everybody would gather a lot of courage now hence to take our products across to Canada in the coming months and years, with all the support to which we can garner from you all. Well, I would like to look into areas of the government intervention and the progress made in the food sector in India. Agriculture has been a critical growth driver to India's economy and provided livelihood to its population across centuries. We all know India has several agroclimatic zones and a large, diverse agricultural production base, and its second largest producer of rice, wheat, and other cereals, and also ranks second in the fruits and the vegetables production. India has a share of 2.5% in global agricultural exports in 2020 and 1.4% of processed food products. This indicates the huge untapped potential which India has got. Now let's look into the government intervention and their support towards the food industry at large. To help leverage this potential, India recognizes the need to build the robust food processing infrastructure, and the private participation is required to be effective. The Ministry of Food Processing Industries has identified 6 focus areas and sectors: supply chain infrastructure, primary processing, storage and distribution facilities, linkages between production and processing, addressing seasonality and operations and low capacity utilizations, bridging institutional gaps in the supply chain, quality and safety standards, product development and innovations. The government opened the sector to 100% FDI in 2016 under the automatic route. In 2017, 100% FDI was permitted under the government route for retail trading, including through e-commerce. The Pradhan Mantri Kisan Yojana scheme for agro-marine processing and development of agro-processing clusters made an allocation of rupees 6,000 crores for 2016-2020. Under the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Yojana, 41 mega food parks, 353 cold chains, 63 agro-processing clusters, 292 food processing units, 63 backward and forward linkages projects, and 6 operational green projects have been approved. The Union Cabinet also approved induction of PLI scheme in food products for enhancing India's manufacturing capabilities and enhancing exports under Atmanirbhar Bharat. The scheme has internally outlay of rupees 10,900 crores at the end of 2021, 60 companies in 4 segments: ready to eat or ready to eat foods, processed fruits and vegetables, marine products, and cheese have got approved. Let's look at the progress in the food processing sector now. India's food processing industry engages around 1.93 million people across 39,000 registered units with fixed capital of 32.75 billion and aggregates output of around 158 billion. The gross value added in the food processing has increased from rupees 1.3 lakh crores to 2.8 lakh crores in 5 years. India's food processing sector is one of largest in the world, and its output is expected to reach close to 535 billion by the year 2025-2026. The subsegments of the industry in India are dairy, meat, marine, cereals, grains, oil seeds, fruits, vegetables, beverages, which also includes non-alcoholic and packaged foods. According to KPMG report, cereals, grains, and oil seeds, packaged foods, and dairy accounts to around 87% of the food processing sector in India. All the subsegments are seeing strong growth in demand. There is a huge opportunity for infrastructure segments like dairy, fisheries and fruits, and vegetables for processing, storage, cold chains, logistics, etc. The sector also fuels related opportunities in food ingredients, food processing equipments, and lab testing and packaging. Indian food processing markets is expected to double from 263 billion in 2019-20 to 535 billion in 2025. The massive pace of urbanization in India has been accompanied by the rise in dual career households, constantly fueling a trend towards packaged foods, dairy, snacks, ready-to-eat and ready-to-eat products. Demand for processed products is expected to increase sharply in the coming years. We see a lot of potential for trade between India and Canada. Considering the high trade complementary and the current low base, in 2020, Canada's imports of food and beverage products were around 36 billion, but over 65% is sourced from 4 countries: the US, Mexico, China, and Italy. India ranks 9th in the list of the top import sources for Canada, with a share of only 1.4% of the letters import. This clearly shows that India stands to gain from tapping this market. Post-COVID, research from BDC Bank Canada shows that food and beverages industry could grow by 15 to 16% over the next 5 to 6 years. The market is mirroring global trends in terms of shift towards healthier food. We need to carefully assess the emerging trends and opportunities that Indian producers can service, and then look at how we can meet this demand by leveraging our competitiveness advantages. The Indian food and beverages industry is eager to engage in this market aggressively with the invaluable support of the government and the collaboration with the food and beverages businesses in Canada. So this is where I would like to thank the panelists from Canada who have been very gracious enough to encourage all we Indian exporters and guide us through a long list of Mangeshji's slideshow. And we hope we all can gain through this. And thanks to the Government of India and the Consulate General in Vancouver to have organized this wonderful TPCI event. And we look forward to questions, if any. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for your remarks and for your introduction of the Indian industry strength and potential. I would now request Mr. Ashok Sethi, Director, Trade Promotion Council of India, to give us a more granular perspective of Indo-Canada F&B trade and how he views the opportunities for Indian industry. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Virat. Your Excellency, Shri Manish, Consulate General of India, Vancouver, respected Shri Manjeesh Grover, Council Commerce, CGI, Vancouver, Mr. Tony Singh, CEO and President, Fruticana, Canada, Shri Abhishek Podar, Vice Chairman, TPCI, Food and Beverage Sectoral Committee, and Managing Director, Nani Agro Foods, and my respected colleagues, Shri Suresh Makhijani, Joint Director General, TPCI. I am sharing with you a presentation which I have prepared, and the whole objective of this presentation is to basically stress upon the opportunities which we have between India and Canada. At the onset, I'd like to introduce Trade Promotion Council of India. It's an apex trade and investment promotion organization notified in the Foreign Trade Policy. The Government of India, recognized and supported by Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Ministry of MSME, Ministry of External Affairs, and several state governments. We have around 2,500 active industry members from food and beverage, food processing technology, chemical and allied products, ceramics, IT, telecom, infrastructure, and service sector. Highlighting TPCI special sectoral committees for trade and investment promotions in food and beverage sector. We have the Sectorial Committee on Food and Beverage, Sectorial Committee on Food Processing and Packaging Technology, and trade and investment promotion other industry sectors like chemical and allied products, ceramic products, and service including tourism. Few top players in respect of these sectorial committees are: in the food and beverage sector, we have Capital Ventures, we have Nani Agro Foods, we have BKG Foods International, we have Hamdard and others. In food processing technology, we have ITC, Kirloskar, Uflex. These are the big names and others to follow. In ceramic, we have Varmora, Sunhurt, AGL, SAYS, and others. Chemicals. In chemicals and allied products, we have Tanya, GFL, Unitop, Asian Paints, and others. Gentlemen, I have covered Canada at large and do believe that West Canada would be a reflection of the whole country. My focus has been on numbers and just numbers, and therefore specific opportunities in the food and beverage sector in export and import. We've been hearing all these numbers, and I just want to reiterate facts that Canada's GDP stood at 1.6 trillion in 2020 with annual GDP degrowth of 5.3%. But Canadian food and beverage sector has shown resilience throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. As such, total imports of food and beverage grew by 4%, 4.7% versus year ago. We've had some interesting information from both Manjesh ji and from Mr. Tony on excellent SWOT analysis on the market of Canada and what exactly should we be doing to enhance business. However, I could see potential of around 2,500 food processing companies in British Columbia producing added value products in food and beverage. Highest concentration of wineries in Oliver, BC. Seafood processing plants are found in Vancouver Island and the southern coastal region. And BC's food and beverage processor produces a great number of approximately $9 billion worth of food per year, representing 70% of the total agri revenue. Here are some numbers which I would like to bring to your notice. Known, of course, but just trying to reflect. Of course, Indo-Canadian relations have shared traditions of democracy and pluralism, as mentioned earlier. And one of the largest Indian origin communities constituting 4% of Canadian population exists there, with, as I understand, huge potential to grow. I've done a comparative of the last 3 years on India's bilateral food and beverage trade with Canada, which is as follows. Says that the India's food and beverage exports to Canada in 2020 was $476 million with a CAGR, i.e. the compound average growth rate of 3.83%. And the Indian food and beverage imports from Canada of 533 million in 2020 had a CAGR of 61.65%. And India's food and beverage bilateral trade with Canada in 2020 was 1009, which had a CAGR of 22.32%. Here it's very, very vivid that there is a huge potential to grow in exports from India to Canada. Recent news and coverage has been considerable progress has been made on talks with the Canadian decision makers with the expectations of fruit-bearing talks for a proposed comprehensive economic partnership agreement and free trade agreement, which can be a real plus. Let's look at the top 10 food and beverage exports to Canada. Now, if you look at the food and beverage sector as such, versus year ago, we've grown by 18%. Versus Canada's total imports, we are only 1.3%. Now, this again just shows the sort of potential we have to penetrate into Canada. And if you look at the products, if you see the ones in red, frozen shrimps and prawns, semi-milled, whole-milled rice, shrimps and prawns, wheat or muslin, they have great potentials to grow. So here I would like to mention that again, let us look at this sizable opportunity and knock the doors. Looking at the exports, the overall food and beverage imports has been 16% growth. Canada's exports has been $50,813 million. A share of only 1.1% is from India. Now, this shows that here is an opportunity for Canadian partners to get into this market. And there is potential, as you can see, of the top 10 products, for example, dried shell lentil, shell peas, etc., including frozen shrimps and prawns and lactose. Let's move to the food processing technology. This is very interesting information that higher value added food often requires very specialized machinery. And this is for processing, packaging, and serving. For example, in soup, sauces, dips, RTE. Ready-to-eat meals, as I understand, is a big, interesting market in Canada right now. Growth in the higher value added food segments is almost 3 times faster than convenience food and 4 times faster than health food. Globally, food processing is expected to grow by over 6.2% annually. However, processing of higher value-added foods is to grow at 9% annually. Let's look at the exports by India in the food processing technology. To the world, we do $280 million US, whereas Nigeria stands at number 1 at 36 million, and USA stands number 3 at 20 million. Whereas Canada stands at 33 and only 3.7 million. Therefore, great potential for the Indian food processing technology exporters to explore this market. Again, an opportunity. Let's have a look at the India's food processing technology trade with Canada as an overview. Look at the 5 top Indian exports in Canada's imports of food processing technology. If you look at the food processing technology at large, we will see that we are catering to just 0.16% of the potential. However, what is very important here to see is that the most important product which goes to Canada is parts of machinery for industrial preparation or manufacture of food or drinks, which says that India top exported food and beverage processing technology in India has been this particular product. And this also is Canada's 5th most imported food processing technology from the world, from where they import $132 million worth of, i.e. a 26% share. Again, a great opportunity. Therefore, gentlemen, having covered the topics on a somewhat micro level, we find opportunities to build immediate common inroads into the core sectors of food and beverage and food processing technologies, which would only enhance the already existing robust food and beverage bilateral trade, which has been very well focused in our meeting today. Indeed, let's pray that even the endemic of the pandemic blows away soon as we see a silver lining in the dark cloud and we get back to the serious business between 2 excellent, willing and friendly nations. Needless to say that TPCI would always be ready to participate as best possible to achieve our common objectives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Can you close the sharing?
Yes.
Right. Thank you so much, everyone, for those excellent remarks. And I think we have a pretty good idea, much more than we could expect out of a webinar like this on the market potential in Canada and what kind of synergies India can explore, or India and Canada both can explore in areas of mutual interest. Now, I would like to request Mr. Manish, if you'd like to deliver some closing remarks from your end on the session so far.
Thank you, everyone on the panel today for highlighting the potential for food and beverage sector and how Indian exporters can enter into Canadian market. My colleague Manjeesh has given a comprehensive presentation on the strategy and the things to look out for. Mr. Tony Singh, who himself is a practitioner for 27 years plus, has given some practical insight. So as we all see that, and based on also from the inputs from Mr. Ashok Sethi, who has gone into micro details of the broad picture, and there are ample opportunities for our exporters to enter India, the Canadian market, and we at the consulate will always be there to answer to your queries. I have seen a lot of Q&A in the chat box. Also, a lot of questions are there. So I hope that TPCI will collate it and send it to us, and then we will be happy to share the information with the potential exporters from India. Of course, some questions were related to whether we can share the presentation or not. I think this presentation is for all the exporters of India, and TPCI will definitely share with everyone. And there were some queries also regarding to contact with Mr. Tony Singh or some people who are importing. We will share the email ID of Mr. Tony Singh with all the TPCI who can share it with. He has some specific, we were discussing, he wants himself to diversify his import base out of India. So he has some specific requirement. I hope the session will help him also to identify some key other partners with whom he can collaborate in frozen food. Other day he was saying that the jaggery is also a big important in demand these days in Canada. Mm-hmm. So I think if TPCI can help him get in touch with good jaggery producer, because he was saying that the growth has been phenomenal in this sector. So I mean, all in all, I'm very satisfied with today's presentation, and this is how the way we should go about, by bringing all the stakeholders in a common platform and work towards achieving our export targets, and which can be a win-win situation for both of us. And in terms of this country, Canada is also home to a lot of agri-tech innovation, and there is a lot of things to be learned from Canadian market also in agriculture related technology, best practices. And so we have to see the trade in a bigger sense that way, where it is win-win for all of us. And thank you once again, TPCI, for taking lead in partnering with us in this seminar. And just to inform the members of TPCI that in days to come, we'll have another sector-specific presentations, be it apparel sector, which is another big potential, because as Tony said that, people of Indian heritage is here, so they need Indian clothing or Indian this thing. So there is a huge demand for various ethnic clothing out of India. So we can have a session on that. And of course, we can also work with you to have a session on pharmaceutical sector, which is another potential sector for both our countries. So thank you everyone on the panel, and thank you all the viewers and participants. I see at one point of time it was close to 100 people participants watching this webinar, all out of India, which is late in the night there. But thank you everyone for joining us, and please feel free to write to us for any trade related queries. I see some of the queries already in the chat box, but as time is short and we need to identify precise data which you have asked for, from somebody asking whether opportunity for saffron, or first time exporter who doesn't have enough money to export, or what should be the strategy of advertising. As we have always been emphasizing that we have to create our own brand and advertise properly. So in that sense, the government's role, that Export Promotion Council role, comes into a picture for that. And we should position ourselves as a lead country, because one of the slides showed that we are a huge country with different geographical areas, which we produce a lot of products. But the challenge is how to adapt to the exporting countries' terms and conditions, their to sell our products. So I wish everybody who are interested in Canadian market to start thinking about it, and we are there to connect you with the right people. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. Actually, I totally agree with you. I would like to apologize to the audience. It seems that both we have an extremely lively audience and an extremely lively panel. So I'm really tempted to address some of those questions. But since we are facing a paucity of time, I first of all request everyone to please share their questions with us separately. They can give them in detail to our email ID as mentioned in our Zoom invite. And those who are unable to have not seen the full video, the video is also live on YouTube, and I will be sharing the link again to you separately by email. So that's it from my end. Thank you so much to all the panel members, and I would now request Mr. Suresh Makhijani, Joint Director General, Trade Promotion Council of India, to please deliver the vote of thanks. Over to you, Suresh Makhijani, sir.
Thank you, Virat. Greetings to our esteemed panelists and audience in both India and Canada who have joined us for this very topical discussion on F&B trade and investment opportunities between India and Canada. It has truly been a privilege to be a part of this session and listen to the excellent perspectives and knowledge sharing by this august panel. On behalf of TPCI, I would like to earnestly thank Mr. Manish, Honorable Consul General of India. Sir, we are honored by your presence. We would also like to thank Mr. Manjesh Grover, Mr. Tony Singh, Mr. Abhishek Podar, Vice Chairman, Food and Beverage Sectoral Committee, and MD Nani Agro Foods. And of course, my dear colleague Ashok Sethi, Director, Trade Promotion Council of India, for sharing some brilliant insights on the potential of trade and investment in West Canada and how Indian businesses can realize it. And special thanks to Virat Bahari, Deputy Director, TPCI, for moderating the event. We sincerely hope this session will lay a sound foundation for the concrete and result-oriented efforts in this direction, where TPCI will be most happy to play a collaborative role. Thank you all once again, and have a good day in Canada. With this, I respectfully bring this session to a close. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.